it's good to know you're still there, and it's Daybreak Tuesday on Edo Broadcasting Service Television in Benin. On this segment, we're going to be looking at a very key issue in Edo State, a very key area, because without revenue, the state cannot carry out most of its developmental strides. So we're going to be looking at that aspect on this show this morning, and our guest is someone who has an intimidating profile, especially as it comes to public service. He has influential roles at various companies, large-scale industries, and has even served as board chairman and member at some of these areas, even as the Federal Commissioner of the Public Complaints Commission in Nigeria. He is a seasoned legal professional and a member of several distinguished organizations, including the Law Society of England and Wales. We could go on and on talking about his profile, but I'd like to introduce to you this morning the Executive Chairman, Edo Internal Revenue Service, talking about Otunba Oladele Bankole-Balogun Esquire. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to EBS Daybreak Studios.
Thank you.
Our audience may not understand, and I know this is homecoming for you.
Absolutely.
So welcome home.
Absolutely.
We're welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's look at tax reforms in Edo State, being the chairman in charge of that sector. Since being appointed as the chairman of the Edo Internal Revenue Service, what are those things that you have done to improve in that sector?
Well, first and foremost, let me say again, thank you very much for having me on your program. And like you rightly said, this is like home for me. As you probably know, my late father, Bankole-Balogun, established EBS, and he was its first general manager many years ago. And then he went on to become the Director General of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. So again, well done for all the good work
Thank you.
that you, your team, the MD have been doing to sustain that tradition. Now, going back to your question, what are we doing to improve revenue in Edo State? Essentially, what we're doing is to try and block leakages. There's been an awful lot of leakages over the years within, the entire revenue space, and we have found, with an awful lot of support from His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Edo State, that the best way to deal with those leakages, first and foremost, is to digitalize the entire process. Now, this is going to take quite a while to do, but we have actually started that process of digitalizing the entire space, first of all, by having a central billing system to take care of that. But as we go on slowly and steadily, we shall capture, the informal sector, and at the same time, have a plan, to bring more people and more individuals and corporate entities into the tax net.
Okay, that individuals and more people you talked about seems to be the area we really need to focus on. We have some issues there because people complain of individuals coming to collect money from them by hand, and most times we don't know where those monies actually go to. They are not accounted for. So how do you intend to?
Well, this is part of the leakages that we're talking about, and the way that we intend to do that is to make sure that our enforcement capabilities is enhanced. No one, and I repeat, no one is meant to collect state revenue by hand. It's not done anywhere in the world, and it certainly would not be allowed in Edo State. There are channels for people to pay, their taxes. You can pay online. You can pay through scratch cards. There are many. We can go to the banks and pay over the counter. But to collect cash that is not documented is just a panacea for fraud, corruption, and all sorts of untoward activities. That is not going to be accepted any longer.
Okay, and this too has to do with unions, though there's been a ban on union activities in the
Yes.
state, but somehow we still know that we have pockets of them, doing
Yes.
their thing one way or the other,
Yes.
and they also are of the opinion, or they say that collecting the dues on by your agency on behalf of them can affect their welfare. So how do you intend to look at that?
Well, that is a story that the unions have been projecting, and it's absolutely not correct. The state, any state, has a legal obligation and duty to collect taxes. The individual has a civic responsibility to pay their taxes, so that all of us, can benefit from government. And by benefit, I'm talking of infrastructure. I'm talking of all sorts of things. So when the unions say that their welfare is going to be affected, there's absolutely no truth in that. And over the last week or so, I've personally engaged with the three major unions on this issue of welfare or no welfare. It's not going to be business as usual. There is already agreed with these unions a template, a sharing formula, if you like, for revenues accruable. That's been agreed, and I hope that they will stick to the terms of that agreement.
Okay.
In one of the meetings, we had the entire security agencies in Edo State represented. In another of the meetings, the Commissioner of Police was very well represented, well, was actually present. So, we have been speaking to them, and I sincerely hope that they will do the right and needful. Having said that, His Excellency the Governor has also spoken to them very, very firmly as well. Edo State belongs to all of us. Yeah? So we will not allow any sort of miscreantic behavior, if there's any language such as that. And I'm also aware that the Secretary to the Government, so the entire Edo State paraphernalia has appealed to these people to toe the line. So essentially what we did last week was to read the Riot Act to them and hope that they understand what that means.
Okay.
So can we go a little bit deeper? Can I call you His Excellency now or just Honorable?
No.
Because with all the profiling and all of that,
Yes.
I know you are Otunba, Honorable Oladele Bankole, and you have a wide range of experience. And
Thank you.
any UD executive or a chairman job in Edo State, apart from your primary assignment,
Yes.
which is helping to recuperate leakages.
Yes.
Now let's look at the issue of synergy, working together, and
Yeah.
your initiative of digital change.
Yes.
Don't you ever think that you're going to encounter resistance? Because most of the shortcomings, the bottlenecks we have when we have change initiators is resistance. Like we talked about union and all of those conflicts that you can have to block leakages. We know we are from a climate where people are very volatile and
Yes.
resistant to
Yes.
change.
Yes.
So what have you put in place? Because we still keep having the market unions
Yes.
and all of those pressures from government, apart from His Excellency's positioning.
Yes.
Zero tolerance for
Yes.
Unionism.
You raised a fantastic question, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be absolutely honest with you.
Yeah.
And this is something that myself and His Excellency Senator Moni Pablo have discussed
Yeah.
formally and also informally, when we sit down and discuss on. This is probably the most important question
Yeah.
to do with within
Yes.
the space of what we are doing.
Yeah.
And the answer, very simply,
Yeah.
is that we need to embark on a sensitization program.
Okay.
A heavy sensitization, like a multifaceted sensitization program. First of all, to let people understand that paying taxes is not punishment. Paying taxes is not political. Paying your tax is paying your fair share to ensure that society moves on, exactly.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you've got government. You've got a governor who has won a landslide election by promising people that, I'm going to hinge my performance on 5 major planks:
Yeah.
healthcare, food security, education, infrastructure. You can't do that, if you don't have the resources
Economic
to
base.
do that. So that is a fantastic question, and the answer is a major sensitization program.
On whose shoulder
Such
lies this sensitization program?
Well, it's collective. It's all of us. I mean, we have a major role, to play in that. You have a major role. The media has a major role.
Because one of the challenges that you have under this administration is to be able to give credence, because some people still have a feeling that, well, we still have a lot of this touting and resistance from people.
Yes.
Politics is an all-common game.
Yes.
And a major stigmatization of any administration that will not go too far,
Yes.
looking for excellence, recreating structures and rebuilding the broken walls of trust,
Yes.
is this infiltration, giving a dog a bad name to hang it.
Yes.
We are from people, like I said it before, people are resistant to change and good initiative.
Yes.
So what will you do if there is an upsurge, no matter how civilized or digital or explanatory or explanation, but there are some demons who will just say, no,
Yes.
these things will work.
Yes.
Because that's where they are breeded from.
Yes.
And they feel that they have contributed to the whole system of landslide victory for the governor. So
Yes.
how do you now curtail, or do you think of reassigning instead of giving your job a bad name?
Yes.
Because as you go out now, we still see a lot of if you go through the metropolis around your office there,
Yes.
you can see more than 4, 5, 6 people just collecting money
Yes.
and all of that.
Yes.
And those are leakages. It doesn't go.
Yes.
Then question number 2, within a short while of your appointment, you have been able to mop up a huge sum of 10 billion between January and February. How did you accomplish that? We never had that kind of record before.
You've asked me about 4 questions.
No, but just go on.
Okay.
So which one do I
No,
start?
no, you fire in the
Well,
shots.
well, first and foremost,
Yeah.
the issue of touts
Yeah.
has been an endemic, if not a pandemic problem
Okay.
over the years. And I personally think that the way out of that is is a sustained improvement in our entire space of revenue collection, revenue management, creating awareness in the general public. You see, once we begin to be successful, very, very successful in all of this, and the public can actually see,
it, yeah.
benefits,
Yeah.
and they can see their naira going further, I think there will be a conspiracy within the public, to actually get rid of these miscreants. Nobody wants them.
That's true.
Nobody wants them, but for some reason or the other, they have become a menace, to operations. The other day, I was driving. I saw somebody forcibly trying to collect money from a driver. Half of his body was inside the car, and the other half of the body was outside. I mean, who does that? We're in the 21st century, for crying out loud. But these are things that will take time,
Yes.
to deal
overcome,
with.
yeah.
To deal with. It will take time, and it needs the support of everybody.
And that has to do with your digitization and how.
Well, I mean, the digitization, as I said earlier on, will mop up and close all sorts of gaps and leakages. But the digitization would not stop criminals and miscreants
Yeah.
on the streets.
I think the key point you made is about sustained improvement in life,
Yes.
quality of life of
Yes,
people.
exactly.
When they sustain it, like what we've seen today, like we've never seen before, we have seen initiatives of the flyover and all of the attraction
Yes.
of,
Yes.
things are happening
Yes.
that,
Yes.
that people can see.
Yes.
So if there is a sustained improvement of the quality of life
Exactly.
and the quality of infrastructure of the people,
Exactly.
the people can wage a war now against touting and infiltration
Exactly.
of.
It is the people
So-
who will rise up and say, you know what, enough is
So
enough.
now we had all of
yes,
this,
enough is enough. And it's beginning to happen. I'll answer your 10 billion question in a minute. And it's beginning to happen. It's beginning to happen in a sense because you would see that there's a reduction. In fact, I made a comment the other day that you can actually see that there's a reduction. And I'm on the phone,
Yeah.
to the major union leaders,
Yeah.
be it Shaba, Osapawa, No Molest, and Honeymoon of the National Road Transport Workers.
Workers Union, yeah.
I'm on the phone to them virtually every other day to say, look, keep your people under check. Otherwise, you will feel the wrath of the government. So that's another point.
Yeah.
At
That's
some,
a good one.
yeah, because you see, at some point, you must have to bring law and force
To play. Yeah.
so that people would realize that His Excellency the Governor of the state is not taking any prisoners at all.
Yes.
Now, going back to how we were able
Yeah.
to achieve the significant feats that we did over the years, there's been a lot of lip service, to revenue collection and so on and so forth. So we found that there were leakages that we could quickly block and collect monies being owed to the state. So that was our initial focus, to look at some of the high net worth people, and it's still ongoing, and collect back taxes, whether it be through PAYE or withholding taxes and so on and so forth. And that's why we were able not only to sustain the average, which was like a perennial average of about 6.87 billion.
Which in 2 months.
Yeah.
January, February.
Yes, January, February.
Yeah. So let's quickly look at another intrusion or another initiative of this Atalakba recovery concept created and reportedly playing a role in revenue collection. What the marriage between the Atalakba creation and your office.
Yeah.
Are you going to manage that kind of because we are aware of the intrigues and the complications of the reputation of the Atalakba formation and where they are coming from.
I like your allusion to marriage.
Yeah.
As you know, marriages are very tenuous and careful things that you embark upon. But let me correct you.
Yeah.
The Atalakba Concept Recovery Company was engaged by the Internal Revenue Service, not on the line, not to collect revenue.
Okay.
The only agency allowed to collect revenue on behalf of the Edo State government is the Edo Internal Revenue Service, Shikena.
Okay, so what's their role?
So the role of Atalakba is to enforce compliance.
So that's where the law and force comes in.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you would find that in some places, for example, there's been a reduction in this miscreantic, behavior because of their presence, to keep them within their parks, for example. So that is their job, to go around and ensure that there's a compliance with our enforcement of revenue. So not to collect revenue. They are not collectors. They are not collectors. It is the Internal Revenue Service that is charged with the responsibility by law.
So, but you think that there's not going to be a conflict situation because, you see, somebody once said that there's this book written by Shorinka, Madmen and Specialists. We are from a system where people are also quite volatile and resistant to what is refined and what is...
well, the engagement of Atalakba is by contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the tenure? What's the terms of reference?
Well, the engagement of Atalakba is on contract.
Yeah.
And I had a hand, in drawing up that contract. And one of the clauses in the contract is that if for any reason there is a public outcry arising from their activities, which is not by the terms of this contract, then the contract becomes void.
Who voices? Your office or His Excellency?
The contract is between the EIRS and Atalakba.
So if there is going to be a divorce, it has to be, you talked about marriage.
Yeah, so he talked about marriage.
So it has to be
but let's look at
No, I want us to look at conflict. You talked about conflict now. There's supposed to be this synergy between the local and government, state government, and your agency. So how are you checking that to avoid
double taxation?
Double taxation.
Yeah, I mean the question of double taxation really would not arise because the state, via the EIRS and the local governments. We are constantly talking, having meetings. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting with the revenue heads of local governments today in Benin City. So there's an ongoing relationship, and there's some sort of bifurcation of funds. As in the sharing of funds are curable.
So why do we still see, because we've heard some drivers complain that while on their job, they get to one local government, they pay some amount of money, they cross to another local government, they pay some amount of money.
That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen, to be honest with you. And these are the kinds of things that we're looking at. Last week we agreed a formula, and that's part of, I can't obviously mention it now because I haven't spoken to the revenue heads of local governments. That would happen today, but we agreed a formula with the unions, and that will be rolled out today.
So you gave a picture of what you saw, a revenue collector who his head was in the vehicle.
It was not a revenue collector, okay, sanctioned or authorized by the EIRS. Okay. It was some individual, not a revenue collector. I would be aghast, to see our revenue collector operating in such fashion.
Why are you so sure? Have you put in any training? Have they gone through
there's
any form of training?
There's ongoing training.
Okay.
There's ongoing training of our people. We train, every so often, and I would be aghast to see our revenue collector in that sort of mode. And at the same time, I'll be very aghast to see our revenue collector carrying a spike, big stick with a spike, yes, trying to enforce revenue. That's not the way to enforce revenue. Certainly not in the 21st century. And that is the whole essence of our digitalization process. And I personally would like to see, by the time I come to the end of my service in the revenue, a situation where the entire revenue collection in Edo State would be absolutely cashless.
Now, let's, Honorable Sir, many people find it difficult to differentiate between legal revenue collectors and illegal revenue collectors. And this has resulted in multiple taxation, multiple collection that drains the resources of most of these commuters and goes into the wrong cause. So now I can guarantee you that they are still there in the street. So how do you differentiate? Do your people carry tax? Because eventually every average Edo person that doesn't have a job is looking for how to exploit people.
Yeah.
Like the incidents you just mentioned.
Yeah.
It is clear that that's just taking advantage of people.
Yeah.
So what is the control system put in place?
Well,
illegal tax.
I wouldn't lie to you. This is a major challenge that we're having, and that is one of the reasons why we have the Atalapa concepts as an enforcer.
Okay.
To enforce, and to ensure that this bad behavior.
Yeah, legitimacy.
Yes. In fact, that is the major reason, for entering into contract with Atalapa, to ensure that they sanitize that system for us. And there are many other things that we're doing. We're talking to the law enforcement agencies as well. We had a meeting with the EFCC the other day, the DSS, the police, everybody. And they're quite happy to help us, enforce and sanitize this area. You see, because they all understand that if we have an ecosystem, that is sane, then business can thrive, people will be happy, more investments will come into the state, and all whatnot, and everybody will.
So, but because the issue is that insanity is very rife in Nigeria.
It is, yeah.
Because of the economic, the economic challenge that we have.
Yeah.
Now, do you also put in place, because nobody's against an initiative or a concept that's going to make the state better. Nobody resists what is good by service delivery and the quality of life of the people. Now, these people, the Atalapa group, do you pass them to what have you put in place for training and retraining? Because these are basically illiterates. You don't need to ask a second question. Now, it may be difficult for somebody who cannot operate from your horizon of, vision to completely understand your change initiative or your IT initiative. Because it has to do with training and retraining. You have set 18 local government. what do you have as data plan for the training process, for instance, within the first quarter of the year? How many seminars?
Well, if I knew we're going to go deeply into training, I would have brought my head of human resources, and she will have brought the training needs. No, but basically we have a training. We've done a training needs assessment.
Okay.
And the assessment spans the entire year.
Okay.
And it takes care of training at all levels. Both the executive level, senior management, middle management, right down to the people operating in the field. So training is very, very important to us. And you mentioned Atalapa as well. Atalapa 2, is coming within the training, because we need to train them and sensitize them.
As your representative.
Exactly. As an agent, as our agent. There's a clear distinction between representative and agent.
Yeah.
So they need to also fall in line with our expectations. And we've had 2 trainings in our training school at the old EBS building, which used to be a studio for EBS back in the day. So yes, we recognize that there has to be ongoing training. But my dear brother, I wouldn't sit down here and make any sort of bones about it. It's going to be a hard and tortuous task.
Yeah.
Why? Because this culture of touting agberoism and so on and so forth has been ingrained
in the system
over the years.
Yeah. So it doesn't take.
Over the years. It will take an awful lot of time. You keep on talking about institutionalized misbehavior.
Yeah.
It will take time, but I can assure you that His Excellency Senator Monday Okpebholo is very, very clear-minded about these kinds of behavior and how to stop them.
Mm-hmm. All right. As we wrap up this discussion this morning, we just want a clarification for you, because some members of your team, the Internal Revenue Service, have come, to make some clarifications concerning allegations of overtaxing by private school owners in Edo State. So now we have the chairman here. Please give us some insight into that.
So first and foremost, are you saying my staff who came here were not able to answer you adequately? Is that something I need to go back and deal with?
From the chairman.
You want to hear from me? Okay. Well, essentially, let me just start from the basis that tax is guided by law. There are certain codings and certain formulas that we arrive at to be able to assess an individual for tax. So it is quite ludicrous when you hear that somebody has had his tax increased from, I think something was in the news, some gentleman claimed that his tax had gone up from 700,000 to 30 million. I think you also need to understand that quite a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is the case here, but quite a lot of people, for reasons best known to them, evade and avoid taxes. So it is quite possible that a proper assessment was done in that case, and they found that the guy or the person responsible had been underpaying tax. And it could jolly well be maybe an error in computation. I don't know the particular facts of that particular case. As I said, I also heard it on television, but I've spoken to the people in income tax and assessments, and my understanding is that the assessments that were done within the law.
Okay.
But if anybody has issues with their tax assessment, the law is also very clear. The Personal Income Tax Act in PITA is very, very clear on what that person needs to do. They can appeal. They can appeal, and when they appeal, we look at the whole thing again.
All right. So, what should Edo taxpayers look forward to in terms of tax reforms in the coming months, in the coming years from the Edo EIRS?
Well, I'm going to turn it around and say, only last week, the tribunal in Abuja confirmed what we all know, that Senator Monday Okpebholo is the undisputed governor of Edo State, and so will it be for the next 8 years. So having understood that, and having understood that his economic plan for Edo State is hinged on 5 key areas that will revolutionize the entire Edo State, it is incumbent on me, you, and the people out there to pay their fair share so that these things can happen for the benefit of all. So once that happens, we on our part will ensure that the paying of taxes is seamless, is painless, and it is transparent for people to see that truly a new Edo has arisen.
All right, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Chairman Vias. We've had the pleasure of having in our studio the Executive Chairman, Edo Internal Revenue Service, Honorable Otunba. The Chairman, he's been here, giving answers to questions and throwing lights to grey areas, especially as it concerns tax and the reforms in Edo State. I want to thank you for coming on the show this morning. All right, we'll be back to wrap up the show. Please stay with us.